Now, shall we begin?
And here we go.
Let the games begin.
All right.
A new age has begun. An age of freedom.
This is Sparta!
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
You had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Get to the chopper!
This is going to be quite a ride.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this week. This week, we're talking about the possible revival of Justice League Dark. We're talking about some Captain Marvel 2 news. We'll talk about the movie releases coming out this week and the movie releases coming out next week, because next week there will be no podcast. I'm going out of town at the beginning of next week, actually this weekend, so I'm actually going to release this podcast a little earlier than I would usually. So here's hoping that no real big movie news items come out tomorrow on Friday, because I'm potentially hoping to release this Thursday night, Friday morning. I got something going down on Friday. I gotta get called into work, or I'm going to work a little earlier than usual, so I won't have time to actually record anything on Friday like I usually do. Record some last minute stuff. So if you're listening to this, it's most likely going to be on Friday morning. So that's it. That's the podcast. But you don't want behind the scenes stuff. You just want to hear some movie news items. And this is the podcast where we do that. I don't think I actually gave a proper introduction. This is the Movie Pit Podcast, where we talk about all of the latest big breaking movie news items that have come out throughout the week. We also talk about the movie trailers, which really there's only been one this week, and it's a movie that doesn't even have a release date. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, we will talk about the movies that are coming out in theaters this weekend for all your viewing pleasures. And because there's no podcast next week, we'll also talk about the movie news items coming out next week as well. Because of that, and it's also kind of a light news week, so I'm going to be introducing a new segment that I'm going to be doing here on the podcast. It's already the end of January, and the way it's kind of going to work out is that it's a monthly thing. So I'll get to that when we get to it, but it's a new segment on the podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and hopefully you guys will like it, so I can keep doing it. So let's get to the podcast this week. We're going to talk about some of the movie news items that dropped. I'm talking too quick. We're going to talk about some of the movie news items that dropped after the podcast came out last week. There's only 3 of those. The first one is that Oscar Isaac is set to star and produce in the adaptation of Brian K. Vaughan's Eisner Award-winning comic Ex Machina. No, it is not a remake or a reboot or a sequel of the movie that already starred Oscar Isaac, Ex Machina. This is what they're this is the name of the comic. They're retitling. Oh my god, I can't speak. They're retitling the movie The Great Machine. This will be done by Legendary Pictures, who acquired the rights recently. The comic itself debuted in 2004 and centered on Mitchell 100, or Mitchell 100, not Mitchell 100. Mitchell 100, a former superhero who becomes the mayor of New York City after 9/11. 100 had the power to talk to mechanical devices, but the comic was reportedly concerned less about superheroics than issues of government and political leadership. So it's a very nice little different take on the superhero genre. Vaughn is the man responsible for other awesome comic book series like Y the Last Man, which is being made into a TV series, and Saga, which is one of his more recent comics as well, and that one also has been doing a lot of gangbusters. I would not be surprised if Saga gets turned into something down the line as well. Vaughn will produce the movie, and the script will be written by Anna Waterhouse and Joe Shrapnel. The movie, Oscar Isaac will of course play the main character of Mitchell 100. The next movie news item is that on top of the live-action James Wan produced Mortal Kombat movie coming out next year, Warner Bros. Animation is releasing its own Mortal Kombat movie titled Mortal Kombat Legends: Scorpion's Revenge. The Hollywood Reporter notes the movie will come out in the first half of 2020. So there's no release date, just saying the first half of 2020. On top of that, a voice cast was announced, and some surprising names were attached to it. Joel McHale will voice Johnny Cage. Jennifer Carpenter, for most people, will probably know her as Deborah Morgan from Dexter, the show Dexter. She was also in The Exorcism of Emily Rose. She will voice Sonya Blade. The well-renowned voice actor Stephen Blum will voice Sub-Zero. Patrick, I'm going to mispronounce his last name, Stites, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. He will be voicing Scorpion. He's been voicing the character of Scorpion for a while now. He voiced Jiren in the English dub for Dragon Ball Super, so if you're any fans of that. The rest of the cast is pretty much filled out with some other recognizable voice actors, if that's your thing. I don't know a lot of voice actors by name. I'll probably know them by their work, but not by name. But the movie will include characters like Liu Kang, Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, Kano, Jax, Goro, Katana, Raiden, as well as a character named Demon Torturer. So you got that going for you. This is pretty cool. I'm a pretty big Mortal Kombat fan, so any kind of Mortal Kombat movie or anything other than the video game is really, really cool to see. There's no word yet on if this actually gets a theater release, or maybe if it's going to go on a streaming platform of some kind, but I just wanted to put it out there because it's really cool. Finally, the last movie news item that dropped after the podcast came out last week is Don't Breathe. The sequel to Don't Breathe is moving ahead. Of course, Don't Breathe was directed by Fede Alvarez, who directed the Evil Dead movie. The Hollywood Reporter reports that the movie will be directed by his co-writer of Evil Dead and the first Don't Breathe movie. I'm going to mispronounce his last name, even though it should be very easy for me to pronounce. Rodo Sayagus? I'm pretty sure that's not how you pronounce the last name. It should be easy for me to pronounce, but it's not, apparently. He will direct a sequel. This will be making his directorial debut. Plus, he aims to start shooting in April. So they're moving very, very fast on this. Stephen Lang is set to reprise his role as the deadly loner blind man. Plus, plot details are being kept secret, but the outlet says the movie will be set several years after the events of the first movie, with the blind man living in a quiet solace until his past sins catch up to him. There's no word on what that means, although if you saw the first movie, maybe you can kind of get an idea of what it is, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Fede Alvarez will still be attached to the project. He will co-write the script with his co-writing buddy. I was a pretty big fan of Don't Breathe. I actually got to see it a little earlier before it got its wide release, and I was very proud of that and getting to hear him. He was there. Fede Alvarez was there, as well as Stephen Lang was there. They were talking about it, and they really, really loved it, and they had ideas for doing a sequel. So I'm really happy to see, not proud because I don't actually know them personally. I'm very happy to see them doing a sequel to this, because Don't Breathe was a solid thriller. It really was. If you haven't seen Don't Breathe, I highly recommend you do. Alright, so that's it. Those are the movie news items that came out after the podcast came out last week. We're going to move on to trailer talk. Again, at the time of this recording, there's only one trailer that's out right now, but we're going to briefly talk about it because it is kind of more of a visual trailer.
Coming soon to theaters.
The trailer is Vivarium. I think that's how they're pronounced, or Vivarium. I don't know how they're pronouncing the title of the movie. It stars Image Poots and Jesse Eisenberg, who play a couple who get trapped in a suburban housing complex and neighborhood where no matter how hard they try, they cannot escape it, and everything looks eerily the same. And every day they wake up with a box of supplies, and eventually a baby is delivered to them, and they are stuck there for a while because it looks like the baby grows up to be a child at some point in the trailer. The movie premiered at Cannes last year, where it was quickly picked up for distribution by Saban Films. Yes, that's Saban Films, the people who distribute the Power Rangers property, although it still doesn't have an actual release date. But with the trailer out, I'm pretty sure it's gonna come out eventually. There's no word yet on if it's gonna go straight to VOD, if it's gonna get a limited release, or it's gonna get a wide release. It looks pretty interesting. It does look like, besides Poots and Eisenberg and the kid actor, there is another actor who's playing like the person who's showing them the house, and he's kind of creepy looking, and it looks like he may appear at some point, or maybe he's kind of watching over them. It's really weird. It's almost like a Twilight Zone, kind of more Black Mirror-esque kind of vibe to it. It looks pretty interesting. It does look like Poots and Eisenberg are pretty much going to be holding the movie down by themselves, so we'll have to see how that turns out. But if you want to go catch the trailer, I highly recommend you do, especially if that's kind of, again, Twilight Zone, kind of Black Mirror-esque kind of vibe is your thing. I think this is this is for you. So that's it. That's the only trailer. Again, at the time of this recording, I'm going to release this a little earlier than I usually do because, again, I'm going out of town. So let's move on. If anything drops, between now and by the time I upload this, obviously the trailers, the links will be down below in the description / show notes area. All right, let's move forward. What is wrong with me? Seriously, what did I do? Let's keep going. Let's just keep going with this week's movie news items of the week. So like I mentioned up top, it was a little light this week. We do have some pretty big movie news items in terms of scope, but it was still pretty light. So we're going to start off with some Matt Damon news. Hey, how about that?
Matt Damon!
Ford v. Ferrari director James Mangold is reuniting with one of his film stars and Matt Damon for the thriller titled The Force. The movie is based on a Don Winslow best-selling novel of the same name, which is something that Mangold has actually been developing for a while, and centers on a corrupt NYPD officers. Damon would play a detective, Danny Malone, who runs an elite team crime-fighting squad, but becomes ensnared in a corruption scandal. So, kind of, sort of like his character in The Departed? Yeah, okay. Mangold is also currently attached to direct the Bob Dylan biopic starring Timothée Chalamet, which apparently is now called Going Electric. But other than that, there's no other details, but Mangold and Damon did a pretty bang-up job together in Ford v. Ferrari, so I can only imagine that this will be more or less the same of that effect. The next movie news item is that Channing Tatum is set to star in Disney's long-gesturing musical comedy Bob the Musical. The movie would follow a regular guy, I assume probably named Bob, who can suddenly hear the inner songs of everyone's heart from suffering a blow to the head. The movie has been in the works since 2004, which is a very, very long time, with directors like Phil Lord and Chris Miller attached at one point, as well as Hairspray director Adam Shankman circling the project. At some point, also between the development of this project, Tom Cruise was apparently eyed at one point, but Tatum now is set to star in the movie. He also produced the movie with his Free Association production banner. Tatum has a lot on his plate right now. He's making his directorial debut with the road trip comedy called Dog, which his co-star will be a dog. He is set to star in the romantic drama called Soundtrack of Silence, which will reunite him with his Dear John writer, and is producing an adaptation of Sam Keith's comic The Max, which we talked about late last year. Tatum is also developing his own original musical comedy, or his own musical movie, I should say, called Wingman with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yes, that Joseph Gordon-Levitt. But since it was announced about a year or two ago, there hasn't really been any reports in terms of development, so he's got a lot on his plate. And of course, the ever-mentioned Gambit movie, which is nowhere to be seen in any sort of news reports. I'm pretty sure Gambit is dead at this point. He may or may not be attached to that still. Who knows? I don't think it's happening anymore, but there you go. Moving on to the next movie news item. Moving on pretty quick since, again, it's kind of late. Universal Pictures has picked up the rights to the 1972 TV series Kung Fu to make a contemporary set action film and have put David Leitch in charge to direct. Leitch, of course, directed the Hobbs and Shaw movie for Universal Pictures. He also directed Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde, and was one of the co-directors on the first John Wick. The TV show starred David Carradine as a master martial artist who fled China after his master was murdered. He wandered on the Old West, helping those who needed help, while also eluding assassins trying to kill him. This, unbeknownst to me, is the second martial arts remake that Leitch is attached to, because apparently David Leitch is attached to direct the remake of Enter the Dragon. Yes, that Enter the Dragon, the Bruce Lee classic movie Enter the Dragon, for Warner Brothers. I didn't know that. I don't know how that movie news item evaded me, but it did. Or maybe I just read it and forgot about it, but it's happening. As for Kung Fu, a writer is set to be hired very, very soon, at least according to the report. Coincidentally, a female-driven Kung Fu series remake is being worked on with the team behind NBC's series Blind Spot, and Greg Berlanti, of course, started the Arrowverse over on the CW. For those of you who are not familiar with the Arrowverse, that is, of course, the show Arrow, The Flash, basically all the DC properties that you see on TV. They pretty much belong to Greg Berlanti. He had a hand in creating a lot of those. I'm a fan of David Leitch. I remember watching reruns of Kung Fu, and probably had like 10 more reruns of that, of Kung Fu with David Carradine, and I guess, yeah, sure. why not? I'm sure, you know, fans will have something to say about it, but David Leitch attached. I'm a fan of David Leitch. I love what he does. He obviously knows how to direct action very well, so let him do it, I guess. All right, and finally, the big 2 movie news items. Of course, the first one is that the long in development Justice League Dark looks to be back in development, at least according to a report from Deadline that says that J.J. Abrams, I know, just let me read it, relax. J.J. Abrams' production banner Bad Robot, as part of their new deal with Warner Media, will develop films and TV series based on the DC Comics Justice League Dark. Everything is still in the very early stages, and there's no word yet on if Abrams himself will be directly involved with any of the projects. Regardless, the Bad Robot head of motion pictures Hannah Manghella and head of TV Ben Stephenson will reportedly start taking meetings soon to decide what characters from the team will anchor their movie projects and will anchor their TV projects. Of course, there will probably be some sort of blend, hopefully. For those unfamiliar with Justice League Dark, there is a lot to Justice League Dark, but it is not an evil version of the Justice League. They are actually a team made up of more of the magical side, more of the occult side of the DC universe. They're basically any kind of magical missions they pretty much always call on the Justice League Dark. People like John Constantine, he's pretty much always a member, and the team is ever shifting, but Constantine's kind of always the staple head. He's kind of, I want to say he's the leader, but he kind of always is kind of front and center of that. Satana is also there. Deadman is also there, he's actually a ghost. It's a comic book. Relax. And Swamp Thing is also there, and there, of course, there's a bunch of other people as well attached. But those are kind of probably the big ones that I kind of want. Of course, Constantine. You know, we had Keanu Reeves Constantine. We have currently was his name Matt Ryan? I don't know why Matt Ryan popped in my. Is that his name? I don't know why. I hope that's his name. But the Constantine that we have on TV right now, he's pretty great. He's really great. And of course, Swamp Thing had their short-lived TV series on the DC Universe streaming app. So hopefully, you know, Justice League Dark finally works out, because like I mentioned, this has been in development for a long time, and there's no word if this will be a new version of the Justice League Dark, or if they will try to add in some elements of the much talked about, of the much in the works version that Guillermo del Toro has been working on for a handful of years now. But either way, I'm happy that this is happening. I am more kind of interested in seeing how they're gonna play out with the movie side of things and how they're going to play out with the TV side of things. So that kind of, although I have not seen it yet, but I did see the big kind of spoiler. I guess it was a spoiler. I guess it was just a way of bringing people in, that the TV DC world is connected to the DC movie world, because Ezra Miller appeared in the TV show for a brief cameo, because they had their big Crisis of Infinity Earths crossover right now, and he apparently popped up on the show for just a quick cameo. So I think that was fun. So maybe that was their way of kind of teasing out that, hey, these two worlds are connected in their own way. And of course, the Flash would be the character to associate with that, because he's messed up the timeline more times than anyone can count. But there is that. But I'm more interested in seeing how they do separate the TV side and the movie side of this, and I'm more interested in seeing who they bring in, because that would be pretty cool. But yet another project that Del Toro has been working on for years that may not come to fulfillment because of studio reasons or whatever. You know, add Del Toro's Justice League Dark to Hellboy 3 and to his version of At the Mountains of Madness and his version of Pinocchio, which have been in the works for so long that at this point it's become a joke. Because unfortunately it's become a joke, because I want to see those versions, but we're never going to get them at this point. But I'm happy that Justice League Dark is finally getting its due, because there's a lot of great characters in there, and there's a lot of great stories that you can tell out. And if they want to expand the world, then, you know, more power to them, especially if they can do it well. Hopefully they do it well. Hopefully they do it after all these years. Hopefully they do them justice. So, all right, no pun intended. All right, let's move on to the final movie news item of the week, which is Captain Marvel, whether you liked it or not, was a big hit for Marvel. And while Marvel announced their Phase 4 movies a while back, Captain Marvel 2 was not on the list. While we all knew it was going to happen, that changed this week as The Hollywood Reporter noted that Marvel is lining up a sequel for a date in 2022, although no specific date was actually given. But we can probably assume that it's going to be in the summer since they released Captain Marvel in the summer and it did pretty well for them. On top of that, they're looking for a new screenwriter and directors. Right now, they're in negotiations with Megan McDonnell. McDonnell was a staff writer on the Disney Plus series WandaVision, so it looks like they're extremely happy with what she's done and what she's doing over there, that they're giving her a crack at Captain Marvel. Granted, the first Captain Marvel had multiple writers too before we got the final version, so McDonnell may just be the first writer at the end of the day. But it does make sense of why she's attached at some, if you want to go a little bit deeper. The character of Monica, the little kid in the first movie that belonged to, I can't remember her name now. Of course, I can't remember her name. The little kid in the movie, I can't remember the last name for some reason. And I didn't write it down. I just wrote Monica. I don't know why. That was weird. Okay. Anyway, she appeared as a little kid in the movie. She was the kid to her best friend. She is actually in WandaVision, not the actress, but the character. So there's a little connection there. So it should be interesting to kind of see how they play that out. Moreover, Marvel is looking for a new director, as Ann Bowden and Ryan Fleck will not return, although The Hollywood Reporter notes that, one, they are looking to stay in the MCU, so they're probably going to direct some episodes of the Disney Plus series, I would assume, or maybe they're going to hand them off to another project right now. But they also note that, two, the studio, Marvel, is looking for a woman to direct. So start your speculations now on who they're going to nab and who they're going to grab. I'm pretty sure if I looked up on film Twitter at some point, I'm sure Patty Jenkins' name was attached at some point. Not that I would be complaining if Patty Jenkins' name was attached to that. That'd be really cool. Captain Marvel. I didn't mind the first one. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was great. I think it was awesome. I know the movie gets a lot of flack, mainly because a lot of people hate Brie Larson now for whatever reason, for whatever thing that she may have done to piss a lot of people off. I don't know. I didn't mind the first one. I'm kind of just more interested in seeing what they're going to do with Captain Marvel 2 in general. I haven't read, admittedly, I have not read a lot of Captain Marvel comics or storylines or anything like that, and a lot of the stuff that I know from Captain Marvel is usually when she's attached to other heroes, like the big events in the comic world. So I don't read a lot of her stuff. I know that she's gone evil in the comics right now or something like that, something to that extent. Again, I don't read a lot, and I haven't read a lot of comic books recently either. So but yeah, I don't know, I'm interested. I'm interested. I'm more interested in seeing where they take the character of anything. So there's that. There you go. All right. Those are your movie news items that came out this week. I'm going to, like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I'm going to introduce a new segment. This is a segment that I am doing on the WordPress account, which is where I do my written reviews. And over there, I did it from the decade. So obviously the decade ended. Everyone was doing their best of the decade, their favorites of the decade, stuff like that. I decided to do it a little more tedious and make it more harder on myself because I hate myself. But I decided to look at movies that came out all the way in 2000. Because if you're like me, and I've mentioned this in the past, I can remember movies, I can remember what happened in them, I can remember who was in it, I can remember a lot of stuff from movies that I haven't seen years ago and that I haven't seen in a while, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. But if you ask me what year they came out, I would blank. I would not be able to tell you anything whatsoever. It would be like you asking me to do long division in front of you with a pen and paper, and I wouldn't be able to do it because I haven't done long division on paper in so long. And I'm also an English major, and that's why I stopped taking math classes. So I decided to look back a little bit, and this is something I usually kind of do just for fun sometimes with one of my other friends, but we haven't done it in a while. But I decided just to kind of look back, and the segment's called Monthly Rewind, and it's basically me looking back at all the movies that come out that month from 2000 to 2018. So the cutoff is 2018 because we just did 2019. We don't need to talk about that. So it was me kind of just, what I'm doing is basically just grabbing all those movies, grabbing the big movies, grabbing the movies that I've liked, that stuck out to me, that I still enjoy to this day, or that at least still stick with me, even if it's just like a scene. that still stick with me, and just talk about them and just, do that. So January's almost over, and I was putting the list all together, and then I realized, oh my god, January's almost over. This is dumb. So if you go into the WordPress account, the only movies in January are the ones from 2010 to 2018. So I figure, because it was a light news week, I figure I just do it here on the podcast and talk about the movies from 2018. Now, I'm not going to dive into every single movie, because obviously it's a lot of movies. You should see the document that I made. It's crazy. It's like over, 30 pages, because I put like little notes in there to remind myself of certain things. So I'm going to do this monthly. I'm going to do this till, December. And I may start doing it as separate blocks, as separate podcasts, and won't just be putting it into this podcast, because then the podcast will be way too long. So I'm going to be doing separate podcasts in the future for the month. I don't know if this is something you guys want to listen to, if you guys want to like it. Maybe, you hear a movie and you're like, oh, that's right, that movie, I remember that movie. So that's kind of what this is all about. This is just bringing us back to where we were, where we saw this movie, how we felt about it and stuff like that. So granted, there are movies that I have missed and still to this day have not seen. There have been, again, I'm going month by month, year by year, from 2000 to 2018. There is movies that I probably missed. So if you're like, hey, this came out this month, or this came out this year, where is it? I'm sorry. Okay, just be kind. Please. A lot of movies. My eyes hurt a lot when I was putting this list together. This list took like 3 days to put together. Because it's insane. And there are movies that I was like, this sounds familiar, and then I had to go like the plot synopsis, and then I had to go to Wikipedia to be like, did I watch this? And yes, I did watch it. I just don't remember it. So those movies will not be talked about, because I obviously don't remember too much about them. But for the most part, this is really just, to put more content out there, but to also just kind of be like, hey, remember this movie? You remember this? Yeah, you remember that, right? So this is me just trying to, and also I'm a substitute teacher. I have to sit in class all day and have to watch over those kids and have to do the work, and just have to remind them not to kill each other, or to put their hands on one another, or to stick their heads inside, don't stick their heads out the window or anything like that. So this keeps me sane. So this is another reason why this list is so long. So I'm going to go by it really quickly, because I just, like I mentioned, I'm not going to go, movie by movie and talk about it. But again, starting all the way back in 2000, The Boondock Saints, that came out in 2000 in January. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Snatch came out in 2001. I'm going to go back, by the way, and talk about certain movies like this, but I'm just going to give you all the rundown of everything right now. So Boondock Saints at 2000, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Snatch in 2001, Black Hawk Down in 2002, Darkness Falls, Final Destination in 2003. Apparently either didn't go to the movies in January, or none of the movies in January really stuck out to me in 2004. House of Flying Daggers in 2005. Hoodwinked in 2006. Children of Men, Pan's Labyrinth, Smoking Aces from 2007. The Orphanage and Cloverfield from 2008, and Rambo from 2008 as well. So The Orphanage, Cloverfield, and Rambo from 2008. Gran Torino, My Bloody Valentine 3D. Taken, The Wrestler from 2009. Daybreakers from 2010, The Housemaid, and Ip Man 2 from 2011. Those are both foreign movies, which I found very funny. Haywire, The Grey from 2012. Zero Dark 30, and The Last Stand. Oh, and Movie 43 from 2013. Movie 43, mainly because I watched it, and I hated myself, and I still hate myself that I watched it. And it's not a good movie. It's here for the wrong reasons. And it's not here because it's a good movie, or because, I have fond memories of it. No, it is here to remind me that I paid to watch movie 43. And I'm here to remind you that if you watch movie 43, I'm here to remind you that yes, you too watch movie 43. And you probably hate yourself as much as I do. So let's move on. 2014, I have Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, Her, and Inside Llewyn Davis. 2015 was Paddington, Foxcatcher, and Predestination. 2016 gave us The Revenant, Room, Carol, 13 Hours, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'll get to that right now as well. Just let me get down the list. 2017, we have A Monster Calls and Split. 2018, which is, again, The Cutoff, Phantom Thread, I, Tonya, Paddington 2, and Den of Thieves. So that's the monthly rewind of movies that stuck out to me, that still stick out to me, and that are some of my favorites from January from these past years. So let's just go all the way back. Of course, The Boondock Saints, cult classic, has a major following. People still quote this movie to this day. It is one of those movies that if you watched it, you became an instant fan of it. If you have not watched it, I highly recommend you go watch it. It's very, very good. A little dated, but it's very, 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 very good. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Snatch. Again, two great movies. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I think, is when I really, at that point, maybe unbeknownst to me at that point, but it really was probably for me, going back and thinking about it, the start of me starting to fall in love with foreign film. And it's one of those movies that I watched again for the first time. It was, I forgot what it was. The ArcLight Cinemas was doing this thing. We have one ArcLight here in the city of, or here in the Chicagoland area, because they're mostly like, of course, the big ArcLight theaters that everyone knows about is the one in Los Angeles, but we have one here in the Chicagoland area, and they were doing this thing. I don't know what they were doing, but they were doing this thing, and they were playing the movie in theaters. And I went to go watch it, and I remembered when I was sitting down watching it, I remember loving it. And of course, everyone remembers, the only thing that everyone remembers from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is the fight scene between Michelle Yeoh and for the life of me, I can't remember her name. And I don't want to say it because I'm afraid I'll mispronounce it. But that's the thing that everyone remembers from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And of course, the wire work where they're, jumping on the trees and stuff. But I remember watching that movie. I was sitting there watching that movie again for the first time in a long time. It was the first time that I had seen the whole thing all the way through. And I think this was last year or 2 years ago, something like that. And I was watching and I was like, I don't remember most of this movie. Like, I don't remember anything from the desert. I don't remember a little bit of the ending. I'm not gonna say it just in case you want. Well, if you haven't seen it by now, you probably never gonna see it. But there's a point in the movie at the ending when a character jumps off and it looks like she's flying. I'm sure it's metaphorical. I'm pretty sure it is metaphorical. But I saw that, I was like, what? Why did that happen? I forgot that happened. So it's a very good movie if you want to go back and watch. And of course, Snatch is Guy Ritchie. This was his first kind of major exposure here in America. He had done Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels at this point. And Snatch was, at that time, everyone's like, Snatch was like the American version of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. But Snatch is still very good. Even to this day, it's still very good. And it gives you Brad Pitt. It gives you Brad Pitt shirtless, speaking in a Cockney accent, which, really, that's worth the price of admission alone, or at least the worth of you sitting down and watching it. So 2002, Black Hawk Down. I, for whatever reason, really love Black Hawk Down. It's a fine movie. It's a good movie. But when you look back at it, and over the years I've been watching it, like watch bits and pieces of it on TV whenever I can, even if it's just like to fill even if it's just like background noise when I'm doing some other stuff. But you watch it and you realize just how many people are actually in that movie. That thing is filled to the brim with very recognizable names. There's a young Tom Hardy in here that I forgot he was in it. There's also the Kingslayer, Nikolai Coster-Waldau from Game of Thrones. He's in here as well. So it's very packed to the. Of course, Josh Hartnett's in there, and you forget how Josh Hartnett was supposed to be the next big thing, and then he wasn't. So there's that. And then Final Destination, of course, I think looking back at it now, it's a little bit dated. Probably doesn't hold up very well, but I've still, to this day, I think Final Destination is one of those horror movies where it takes a very unique concept, and it's kind of parodied. It's parodied a little bit now, too, so there's that. 2005, House of Flying Daggers. Again, my love for foreign film was even more cemented with this one. So there's that. 2016, Hoodwinked. Or 2006, sorry, Hoodwinked. Hoodwinked is a movie that I think kind of gets forgotten about. It is a movie about Red Riding Hood, but it is a movie much more about Red Riding Hood, where she's not this very, sweet, innocent little Red Riding Hood. No, she'll kick your ass. So I really liked Hoodwinked. I don't know what it is. Hoodwinked is awesome. I think that it gets forgotten about. I think it's been lost in the plethora of animated movies, but I still remember you, Hoodwinked. I still do. And then 2007, we have, what do we have? We have 3 movies here. Children of Men, Pan's Labyrinth, and Smoking Aces. Smoking Aces, of course, directed by Joe Carnahan. I love Smoking Aces. I don't know what it is. It's Carnahan's directing style, where everything's just kind of balls to the wall out there, and I just to this day, I really like it. Pan's Labyrinth, of course, Guillermo del Toro. It was, unbeknownst to me at the time, it was the first time that I had really seen anything of his. I think at this point I'd kind of already seen Hellboy, but and I'm pretty sure I've seen Blade 2. I think Blade 2 came out after this or before this. I can't remember now. I had to go back and look at my gigantic list of movies. But again, see, I don't remember years. But Pan's Labyrinth is one of those movies that I just instantly fell in love with, from everything, from the storytelling, from the creatures, production design, everything. It is one of those movies where I would arguably say Pan's Labyrinth was the thing that opened up my creative outlet, for sure. And then Children of Men. Obviously, Children of Men is awesome to this day. It is just, it's just one of those movies where I can pop in, and if I see it on TV and it's not the beginning of the movie, it's one of those movies where I don't want to watch it halfway through. I want to watch the whole thing. Everyone remembers that car scene, and that's the scene that kind of always sticks out to me, is the car scene. And then Clive Owen's character running through the city where he's getting bombarded with stuff. So that's really cool. 2008, we have The Orphanage and Cloverfield and Rambo. So those are 3 movies. Of course, Rambo, everything that everyone remembers about Rambo is the scene with him on the mounted gun where he's just mowing down people. He mows down like at least 100 people. And I'm all for that because I'm an action junkie. Or at least action movie junkie. I'm not an action junkie. So no. And The Orphanage, I had saw this actually at the Chicago International Film Festival, but I'm putting it here because it was the wide release for The Orphanage this year. And it was one of those movies where I watched it. I didn't know what I was watching at that point. I didn't really know anything about it. I heard that Guillermo del Toro was either a producer or he was attached to it. My brother kind of told me about it. He was like, the director was friends with Guillermo del Toro or something like that. And they are friends. But it's one of those movies where I was not expecting it to go that route, and it's one of those movies where I was watching it and I didn't know what was going to happen next, and I kind of didn't want it to end because I wanted to see more of where it was going. There's one scene that involves characters knocking, and that's all I will say. I highly recommend The Orphanage if you have not seen it. It's very, very good. And then Cloverfield. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about Cloverfield. I remember sitting in the movie theater, I should say. I think it was opening night. Yeah, it was Friday night, and I was sitting there, and the movie ended, and it was one of probably 3 or 4 times in my whole movie watching experience where I heard a very audible, like, just deflation of an audience. It was one of the only times where everyone was like, and it was one of the only times where I heard loudly in the theater saying that sucked, or one of the 2 times, because the other time was Halloween, and oh boy, I'm gonna have a lot of fun talking about not John Carpenter's, because what am I doing? I apologize. Rob Zombie's Halloween. That was the other time where I heard very audibly people saying, even walking out of the theater and to the parking lot, where people were saying this movie sucked. But as for Cloverfield, I kind of enjoy it. I think it was one of the first. And the thing I love about Cloverfield is before it even came out, everyone was wondering, what the hell is it? And everyone, of course, thought, hey, it's another Godzilla movie. Or everyone, I think at some point, some people were saying it's a Godzilla movie. At one point, some people thought it was a Voltron movie. At one point, I think some people thought it was like this weird, like, just like robot movie or something like that. I remember Voltron. I remember that Voltron rumor for some reason. I don't know why. But of course, everyone thought it was like kind of a Godzilla movie at some point, or like some sort of creature feature. And then it was nothing attached. It was Cloverfield, and it started this whole thing. Of course, we got 10 Cloverfield Lane from it. We got the Cloverfield Paradox from it. And it was one of those things where everyone was just like, I remember the hype surrounding it, and everyone online, and they created this thing online, and I can't remember the initials for it anymore, but it started this big thing online where you get more into the world and to the story if you go online, and then you could see it and everything. And I remember like the production had made like fake MySpace accounts for the characters, because MySpace was a thing back then. Look it up, kids. But yeah, I still kind of like it. I still really enjoy it. I saw maybe the last half of it on TV a few months ago, and I still enjoyed it. I mean, it's not that bad of a movie, guys. Relax. Let's move on to 2009, which is Gran Torino, My Bloody Valentine 3D, Taken, and The Wrestler. Gran Torino, of course, the Clint Eastwood movie. The Wrestler, of course, very awesome. The return of Mickey Rourke, and then for whatever reason he just kind of went away again. This is a return find to form for that, and it was a movie about wrestling. I mean, I'm still a wrestling fan, and I just wanted to go watch that. Of course, Taken, Liam Neeson, bona fide super action superstar now at that point, so it was great. And My Bloody Valentine 3D. No, it is not the original My Bloody Valentine. It's, content wise, it's whatever, but I really enjoyed it. I don't know what it was. I enjoyed it, had a lot of fun with it. So yeah, sue me. Only one movie in 2010, which was Daybreakers. That was the Ethan Hawke, Willem Dafoe, what's his name? Sam Neill. I was gonna say Richard Grant, but that's not who. It's not even Richard Grant at all. I was thinking of Sam Neill's character from Jurassic Park for some reason. But Sam Neill, Willem Dafoe, and Ethan Hawke. It's a movie about it's the same guys that did Predestination, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But it's a movie about vampires. It's kind of one of those underappreciated vampire movies, I guess. I think it's gotten a little bit of a following after its theater run, because people went to go watch it and they're like, oh, it's actually pretty good. So Daybreakers. 2011 was The Housemaid and Ip Man 2. Of course, Ip Man 2, I'm a big Donnie Yen fan. I love the Ip Man movies. I don't care what anyone says. I love them. And The Housemaid. This is another movie I saw at the Chicago International Film Festival. This movie's messed up. That's all I'm going to say. It's messed up. It's I think it's Korean. Yeah, I think it's Korean. It's messed up. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's messed up. Let's move on to 2012, which was only 2 movies, Haywire and The Grey. Haywire, of course, introduced the film community to Gina Carano. Of course, was a MMA fighter at that point, and Michael Fassbender as well. And arguably, it kind of introduced, of course, directed by Steven Soderbergh, it kind of introduced, at least to me, at least this is when I started seeing it, the more gritty, hard-hitting, in-your-face action scenes, martial arts scenes, because of Gina Carano, because she was, obviously able to do a lot of that stuff because she was an MMA. She knows she knows how to fight. She knows what she's doing. So it was that. And of course, The Grey. Once again, Joe Carnahan back on the list. And The Grey is one of those movies. I think The Grey is when it started to be like, January is no longer a dump month, because everyone assumed that January was a dump month. Every now and then you get a big movie, a big name movie, a financial success movie. But I think it was The Grey that everyone was like, oh no, you can put these great movies in January and have a big hit on your hands and be okay with it. And The Grey was one of those movies where I think, to me, is when I actually started seeing that, no, you can put these good movies in January. Studios don't have to be afraid of January anymore. And The Grey was one of those movies where I was like, The Grey is the movie where everyone, look at The Grey and look at the aspect. The Grey came out very early in January and was still in a lot of people's favorite movies of the year, best movies of the year at the end of 2012. I know it wasn't mine, and of course I know a lot of people are still disappointed they didn't get to see Liam Neeson fight a wolf, but get over it. It's not what the movie was about. So let's move on. 2013. I already talked about movie 43. So the other movies are The Last Stand and Zero Dark 30. Of course, Zero Dark 30 was Catherine Bigelow's movie after The Hurt Locker, and then you had The Last Stand. That was the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. This was kind of the return of his comeback, I would say, with The Last Stand, where he plays like an old sheriff in a small town. And it was one of those movies where I watched it and it takes itself seriously, but it's not afraid to be like zany and goofy. And I really loved it. And I watched it for the first time in a long time the other day, or not the other day, but 2 months ago. This is when I was in Africa. I'm sure I told you guys about me going to Africa. So it's not like me like, oh yeah, guys, like I went to Africa. No, I mentioned that on the podcast. But I was in Africa and we had like really big like layover, and we are just like in our hotel room watching it. And The Last Stand popped up, and I watched it for the first time in a long time. I really enjoyed it. I forgot how enjoyable it was. It was a lot of fun. If you haven't seen The Last Stand in a while, go back and watch it. It's a lot of fun. All right. 2014. Where are we? Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, Her, and Inside Llewyn Davis. I admittedly watched Inside Llewyn Davis many years after it had come out, and I regret that, because that movie would have been in my best of 2014. It is a great movie. Oscar Isaac's amazing in it. It's the Coen brothers. You got a lot of Adam Driver in there, Justin Timberlake. John Goodman in there as well. Carey Mulligan there. It's a really great movie. The soundtrack is really good, and yeah, that's all I got to really say about Llewyn Davis. It's really awesome. If you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch it. Her, of course, everyone remembers her. It's the Joaquin Phoenix movie with the Scarlett Johansson Siri, basically. And yeah, there's that. Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones. It's I remember being okay with it when I watched it, and I gave it another chance a couple months ago when Dead Meat channel, James A. Janice, who runs the Dead Meat channel over on YouTube. They also have a podcast that they do as well. He does kill counts on YouTube, they're a lot of fun. If you haven't seen any of them, I highly recommend you, especially if you're a horror fan. So he does kill counts, and he did a kill count for Paranormal, or they didn't do a kill count for Paranormal Activity. They were talking about it on the podcast because they were building it. I don't know why did they do it. I think they were just doing it just for the fun of doing it, for fun of doing a Paranormal Activity series. And they were talking about the marked ones, and I was like, no, yeah, you're right. Like I think this is one of the underappreciated Paranormal Activity Marked Ones sequels. It's next to Part 2. I think it's probably the best, probably one of the best ones, because the Paranormal Activity movies, after the first two, kind of just went downhill. 3 is still okay, but 4, and then this is technically 5, and then the last one, which is the Ghost Dimension, weren't very good. They were horrible. They were downright horrible. But I think this was the last real good Paranormal Activity movie, and they're making another one. We talked about it late last year. The Blumhouse is making another Paranormal Activity movie. There's no details on it, but they're making another one. But I go back and watch because after they talked about it, I went to go back and watched it, and it wasn't too bad. It also has the the Latino aspect to it, and anytime they kind of get that right, it's good. Alright, so we're almost done. 2015. We're on 2015 now. We got 3 Predestination, Foxcatcher, and Paddington. We talked about Predestination earlier with the directors of Daybreakers. This is a movie that when it came out, everyone was really all over it because of just how it handles everything and how it gets to the ending of what it's trying to tell and what its story it's trying to tell. And it's just one of those movies where I watched, I'm like, huh. Like immediately I was like, huh. I'm not a big fan of it. And then I sat down and started thinking about it and just, going back to the motions of everything. I was like, oh no, this is actually pretty good. So Predestination, if you haven't watched it, give it a shot. Foxcatcher, of course, the movie that made Steve Carell very, very scary, and the movie that pretty much turned me into a Channing Tatum fan. I wasn't the biggest Channing Tatum fan, and I'm pretty sure it was this movie that made me see Channing Tatum as an actual actor. Like, no, this guy has range. He just was picking bad projects. So, kudos to Foxcatcher. And then Paddington. How can you not love Paddington? Look, just look at him. He's a lovable bear. Come on. All right, 2016. We're almost done, guys. We're almost done. We're almost done with this. So we have The Revenant, Room, and Carol, and 13 Hours. Of course, The Revenant, the movie that gave Leonardo DiCaprio his Oscar, finally. It's also the movie where he gets ragdolled by a bear, so there is that. But it's also very beautifully shot, so that's another reason why. Room, of course, the movie with Brie Larson. It also gave us Jacob Tremblay, very, very good as well. I thought it was very good. I think the tail end of the movie kind of spirals out of control a little bit, but it was still very well. Carol, of course, Cate Blanchett, Rooney Mara, Sarah Paulson, all just giving these A+ for performances. If you've not seen Carol, I highly recommend it. I think it kind of gets lost now, and trying to not really see a lot of people talking about Carol too much, but go give it a little watch. 13 Hours, politics aside, no matter how you feel about the whole Benghazi thing, 13 Hours itself, thoroughly enjoyable. It's Michael Bay. It's a more controlled Michael Bay. It's not, 6 Underground Michael Bay. It's a more controlled Michael Bay. It's kind of a more, it's it's Michael Bay when he was making The Rock controlled. Oh no, The Rock was kind of crazy. It's just a more controlled Michael Bay. Let's put it that way. It's a more controlled Michael Bay trying to tell a story of these men. Whether or not all the stuff that happens to these men is actually true, although some people will say it is. It's still kind of it's an enjoyable action movie for when you're watching it. Put it that way. Just put it that way. 2017 gave us 2, at least for me. Gave me 2, I should say. Monster Calls and Split. Of course, Split, the the return of M. Night Shyamalan to true form, with this and the visits, and then he went to go and make Glass, which just frustrated me. If you go back and listen to 2 podcasts ago, the best movies of 2019, or the movies of 2019, I talk about Glass. It's one of my frustrating movies of 2019. So there is that, but Split, still awesome. Split's great. James McAvoy, Anya Taylor-Joy, just amazing performances by the both of them. Awesome. It gave us Anya Taylor-Joy. So I mean, come on. And then Monster Calls. That movie wrecked me, man. That movie was just those last 10 minutes. No, I first I was sick. 2, it didn't help because I just bawled like a baby in the movie theater. I don't care. I did not care. I bawled like a baby. So yeah, and I usually don't. I try to hold it in as much as I can, but nope, Monster Calls, that just did me in. So then we got 2018, which is the cutoff for this little monthly rewind. Of course, Phantom Thread, I, Tonya, Paddington 2, and Den of Thieves. Of course, Paddington 2. I mean, come on, look at him. Look at him. It's Paddington. It's a good family movie. Get over it. Stop being so serious. Phantom Thread, of course, the last movie that Daniel Day-Lewis did. This, of course, he announced his retirement shortly afterwards. Or before? Did he do it before or after? I think everyone was saying this was the last one, but I think he announced it afterwards. But regardless, this was his last acting movie, and pretty good. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of it. I enjoyed it for what it was, and I enjoyed watching Daniel Day-Lewis do Daniel Day-Lewis things. I enjoyed Paul Thomas Anderson doing Paul Thomas Anderson things. So there's that. And then you got I, Tonya, of course, Margot Robbie. Everyone. I don't know if everyone really thought that Margot Robbie was a serious actor, but they saw I, Tonya, and they're like, no, yeah, you're a serious actor. So I, Tonya, and if anything, it gave us Paul Walter Hauser. So you got to give the movie credit to that. But no, I loved it. I actually really did enjoy watching I, Tonya. That scene where they kind of do like a kind of a fake documentary kind of thing, and that scene when she's talking to us, quote unquote us, about how we treated her and how we made her the villain and everything like that. That was like, wow, that was really good. So there was that. And then Den of Thieves. Den of Thieves should be a movie that should be forgotten about. They are making a sequel to it. We haven't had much development on that, at least movie news wise. But Den of Thieves should have been one of those movies that you forgot. I never use this word, but it's a schlock movie. And I'm not even using it correctly, but I don't care. It's one of those movies where you're watching it and you're like, you're in for the ride, you're enjoying it, everyone's enjoying it. It's a wannabe Heat. You got Gerard Butler literally chewing up the screen every time he's on it. I'm surprised there's any screen left after all the scene chewing he was doing. And then you got Pablo, I always forget his last name. Pablo Schreiber? No, that's not right. Pornstache from Orange is the New Black. Any Orange is the New Black people that watched it out there. He was Pornstache, but he's solidified himself as kind of his own thing, and he was in this. He was also in 13 Hours, so there was that. I've become a huge fan of his, even though I can't remember his last name, apparently. I want to say it's Schreiber, but no relation to Liev Schreiber. I think it's even spelled differently. But anyway, it's just one of those movies, and it's this cheesy line, and me and my brother are always repeating, because just the way Gerard Butler delivers it, it's like, I didn't bring my cuffs. It's just, I don't know why. It's stupid funny. It's a stupid funny line. It's a movie that it knows what it is. It's not trying to be anything else. It knows exactly what it is, and it's trying to be a little serious, but at the same time, it's like, we're letting you have it. Go ahead, have some fun with this. So there you go. That's your monthly rewind. I will do a little bit more better in February, obviously, hopefully. I won't trust, it's going to be its own thing, so I won't be, putting it with the podcast, so I won't have that problem. But yeah, if you let me know if you enjoy it. If you don't, you don't have, obviously it's going to be its own separate thing, so if you don't enjoy it, then don't listen to it. I hope you listen to it, because I put a lot of work into this thing, so I put a lot of hours into it, so hopefully you do enjoy it. All right. Let's move on with the rest of the podcast. We still have the end of it. Let's move on to this week's movie releases.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
All right, so we got one limited release coming out this week. It's called The Last Full Measure. 34 years after his death, Airman William H. Pettensberger, played by Jeremy Irving, is awarded the nation's highest military honor for his actions on the battlefield. The Last Measure co-stars Sebastian Stan, Sir Darius Blaine, Alison Sodell, Diane Ladd, Ed Harris, William Hurt, Bradley Whitford, Samuel L. Jackson, and Christopher Plummer. I saw the trailer. This is the first time I saw it. I think the first time I saw the trailer was a couple of weeks ago, and it looks fine. I don't know. It's one of those weird. I don't know if it's based on a true story or not, but it's I don't know. It looked weird. Even the trailer is a little wonky for me. But there you go. That's the last full measure. That's your limited release. Your wide releases this week. We have two, very different. We have The Turning, a modern take on Henry James's novella The Turning of the Screw, or The Turn of the Screw, not The Turning of the Screw. The Turn of the Screw. A young governess, played by Mackenzie Davis, is hired by a man who has become responsible for his young niece and nephew, played by Brooklyn Prince and Finn Wolfhard, after the deaths of their parents. I remember reading The Turn of the Screw. It was a while ago. I was pretty sure I was in high school when I read it. I don't remember too much of the story, so I don't know if any of this is even really what the story is about. But it looks interesting, I guess. You know, I'm a fan of Mackenzie Davis. Finn Wolfhard's in there. He's not playing the typical Finn Wolfhard character. He's not being jokey all the time. It works for him. I'm not, complaining. It works for him. Great. But yeah, I mean, it looks scary. I mean, it is a horror movie in January, and sometimes those are not so great. I'm looking at you, Grudge. But yeah, so there's that. Okay, and your next wide release is The Gentleman. Now, this is a movie I've been looking forward to for a while. Written and directed by Guy Ritchie, a British drug lord tries to sell off his highly profitable empire to a dynasty of Oklahoma billionaires, which you don't get that from the trailer, but that's what the synopsis is. The Gentleman stars Matthew McConaughey, Charlie Hunnam, Henry Golding, Michelle Dockery, Jeremy Strong, and Hugh Grant. I think Eddie Marsden is also in there. Yes. Eddie Marsden is also in there. This one I've been looking for this for a while. Guy Ritchie, obviously he made a career of gangster comedy movies. Snatch, which we talked about earlier, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Rock and Rolla, which I'm a fan of, which we'll talk about in the monthly rewind segments, because I actually thoroughly enjoy Rock and Rolla. But this looks great. You got a good cast in there. You got Matthew McConaughey, Charlie Hunnam, Hugh Grant, Henry Golding, like I just mentioned, Jeremy Strong. He's kind of always reliable. Michelle Dockery's in there as well. Eddie Marsden. That's a good cast. That's a good cast in any movie. And you want to put them in a Guy Ritchie movie, delivering his kind of dialogue and everything, and then just make it a comedy mob movie. Yeah, I'm all for it. Give it to me now. Yeah, let's do it. So there you go. The Gentleman and The Turning are your wide releases this week, and then you have The Last Full Measure as your limited release this week. Like I mentioned, I'm going out of town next week, so there will be no podcast because I will be out of town for the most of the week. So I'm going to give your wide releases, or give your releases this week. So for the 31st of January, you have one limited release in The Traitor. I'm only mentioning this because I saw this at the Chicago International Film Festival. It is based on the true story and the real life of Tommaso Bruschetta, played by Pier Francesco Favino, who I think most people will remember him playing Prince Caspian's father. Did he play his father or his uncle or something? No, I think he played his uncle in Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. He was in that. He was also one of the detectives in one of the what was it? Da Vinci Code? No, Angels and Demons. He was in that. So I think that's what most people will know him from. But he plays Tommaso Bruschetta, which is, he was called the boss of the two worlds, and he was the first mafia informant in Sicily, even though he says many times he was not a rat in the 80s. I saw this at the Chicago, like I mentioned, the Chicago International Film Festival, and it was pretty good. And Favino pretty much carries the movie himself. It's pretty long. It's kind of a slow burn. It's not your typical, mob movie, so there is that. So, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, so if you want to go check that out, you can. Again, limited release next week, so just be aware of that. But your wide releases on the 31st, we only have two. We have Gretel and Hansel, which is, of course, kind of a spin on the Hansel and Gretel, obviously, story of the Grimm fairy tale that we know. Sophia Lillis aka Young Beverly from the It movie. She's playing Gretel. And then you have Alice Krige. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. I know her mostly from Silent Hill. She played like the main, kind of one of the main villains in the Silent Hill movie, which we'll talk about when we get to it in the monthly rewind. But she's in there as well. It looks really creepy. It's kind of giving off a witch vibe, just a little bit more dirtier. So I'm all for it. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And then you have the rhythm section, which is based off a novel of the same name. The writer of the book, Mark Burnell, also wrote the script for the movie. Blake Lively plays a woman who's seeking revenge against those who orchestrated a plane crash that killed her family. Jude Law and Sterling K. Brown also star in that, and that looks pretty good. I don't know if the movie got delayed for a little bit. It was mostly because I think Blake Lively hurt herself while filming one of the stunts in the movie, so there is that. But you kind of always worry about movies that get delayed a little bit once an actor gets injured, because they come back and they got to get back in that headspace, and maybe they've been gone for so long, who knows. But I don't buy Blake Lively putting on an accent. It seems a little weird just putting on an accent from it. I don't know what it is. It was like, why give her an accent? Just let her be Blake Lively. At least that's kind of what it feels like in the trailers. They're putting on an accent. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way they structure the trailer that she's putting on an accent to fool someone, but I don't know. We'll see. But I'm looking forward to it anyway, regardless. All right, so that's the podcast, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast this week. I highly appreciate you listening. I threw a lot in there because I thought I wouldn't have enough, and then I kind of rambled a little bit from the monthly rewind, which is a reason why there will be their own thing going forward, their own podcast going forward, or their own podcast special going forward. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. Anything that you guys need, social media wise, So actually, that's pretty much it. Social media wise, links if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, if you want to go listen to it on YouTube, or if you want to go listen to it on Stitcher, or if you just want to keep listening on Apple Podcasts, that's fine too. All the links to that are down below in the description/show notes area. Social media links are down there. Obviously, my personal social media for Twitter and Instagram will be kind of filled with my trip. I'm going to Orlando, which is a lot of fun. If you already know that I'm a nerd, so you probably can guess why I'm going to Orlando. But there's that. But I am using the the Twitter page more for the podcast. I haven't used it this much this week because I've been a little busy, too busy with work this week. So I apologize for that, but I'll be going back on that. But won't be going too into it next week because I'll be out of town, but I'll try to keep it going as much as I can. But thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I highly appreciate it. Go check out all the links down below again for everything. Just have a safe, fun week. I know there's a cold front coming in for a lot of places. We're going to get with it here a little bit in the Chicagoland area right now. But be safe out there. Have fun. Make smart decisions. Be good people. And as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!